You talk about the concept of the professional graph. Facebook, obviously Mark Zuckerberg from the beginning has talked about the social graph. What's the difference between the two?
Yeah, I think a social graph is more about the connections and the mapping of connections within your personal life, mostly with regard to friends and family, and it facilitates social interactions. So, for example, the sharing of pictures, playing social games, etc. It's mapping those connections to facilitate those kinds of interactions that create a lot of value in people's lives. With regard to LinkedIn, we're very focused on a different context, exclusively focused on the context of professionals, as you mentioned during your introduction. So the professional graph is the mapping of relationships between professionals, and in our case, we do that up to 3 degrees. So while you and I know one another and we have a first-degree relationship, if you were to know someone that I was not familiar with, that's a second-degree relationship. If they know someone I don't know, that's a third-degree relationship. And those loose connections in terms of industry parlance are where real value is generated, because if you and I know one another, we probably know about similar opportunities, similar things are on our radar, but it's those loose connections where real value is created. And so the professional graph really maps those interactions and relationships. Beyond the professional graph, one of the things we're excited about talking about putting America back to work and the situation right now with regard to macroeconomic headwinds is the development of an economic graph, which not only maps relationships between people, but maps job opportunities and availabilities, the companies that are offering those jobs, and your ability to see who you know within those companies up to 2 or 3 degrees so you can get your foot in the door. The skills required to obtain those positions, and then ultimately the dream, the vision is for everyone who's a member of the workforce. There's 153 million Americans in the US workforce, 3.3 billion people in the global workforce, and imagine what would be possible if you had a digital profile for all of those folks and could not only connect individual professionals, but connect them to those opportunities, those companies, understand where the skills are on a regional basis. There's some pretty amazing things you could do with that data and information.
You know, you just gave me an idea I haven't thought about before, so I'll test it on you.
Sure.
I mean, in listening to you talk about the professional graph, it sounds like it's much more open than an individual social graph. I mean, just in the sense of, I'm not sure I want to have more social friends than I already have, but my desire for professional connections can only grow because as you said, they have potential value in them. Does that make sense, that the professional graph is more open than
yeah, it's an interesting way of framing it. What I think is absolutely the case is because of the contextual difference, people will connect in different ways. They have different thresholds or parameters they use when forging those connections. So one way of thinking about it is when you meet someone in a professional context for the first time, and I'm sure many people here have done this recently, more likely than not, one of the first things you do is exchange your business card. You're exchanging your professional identity. And the reason people do that is because the more their professional identity is out there, the more opportunities potentially accrue to them. Whereas if you were to meet someone in a personal context, a social exchange, say you go to a party and you see someone for the first time, it's probably very rare that someone says, here's my home address and my cell phone number.
Right.
And so I think there is a difference with regard to the context, and the more people can put their professional identity out there, in our case, that's the profile. You update your profile, and the fresher and more relevant your profile information, the more likely it is to be search engine optimized. So when someone does a search on a major search engine for your name or someone like you, your LinkedIn profile is going to show up at or near the top of the results.
Right.
That's an incredibly valuable piece of digital real estate because you get a chance to represent your experiences, your skills, and I think most importantly, your ambitions. And that's how opportunities begin to accrue to people. And the more they see those opportunities, the more engaged they become, not only with their profile, but building out their network, sharing information and knowledge within a professional context, et cetera.